Hi everyone, Ben here from Bounce Financial. November at Bounce Financial is holiday month. It's the month that we're talking about holidays, we're doing blogs, we're doing videos, we're trying to put out things that are related to holidays and money, because to a lot of our clients, holidays are a really important part of their year and something that takes up a lot of their budget. I know it does for me personally. I'm going to reveal to you today what is my biggest holiday fear. And my biggest holiday fear is losing access to all my money whilst I'm overseas. This has happened to me before. I've been robbed multiple times when I've been overseas, and it can be a real pain trying to work your way around it. So now I employ some strategies to make sure that I always have access to money whilst I'm overseas. So the first part of my strategy is I make sure that I don't only have one card that I'm relying on. So I usually rely on my debit card when I go overseas, but I also have access to my credit card in case I put my debit card, say, in an ATM and it gets eaten up. The second strategy I rely on when I go overseas to make sure that I always have access to money is usually I'm traveling with my wife, and I make sure that she's got her cards as well. That way, if, say, my bag's stolen, I do lose access to both that debit and that credit card, I can simply transfer money through to her and we can use her cards for the rest of the holiday. The third strategy I like to implement to make sure that I always have access to money overseas is to get out a little bit of cash. Now, when I first started traveling, cash was far more important. It was very difficult to be able to pay for things with debit cards everywhere, and you had to lean on cash. But things have changed substantially, and you can essentially use your debit card in most places around the world. Obviously, there are some places where cash is still king, but many places you can use your debit card. But despite this, I like to get out a little bit of cash, just so I know that if something does happen to my cards, perhaps the bank decides that they think that there's fraudulent transactions that are taking place, I will have cash to allow me to be able to do a couple of things, to say, get in contact with the bank. The final strategy that I use to make sure I always have access to money when I'm overseas is to make sure I register with my bank that I'm going overseas. It seems a little bit like I'm checking with my parents if it's okay if I do it, but if I don't do it, I know I run the risk that the bank may flag my transactions as fraudulent and cut off my cards, and that can be a very difficult thing to do. Now, it's getting easier and easier to be able to do that with your bank. You don't necessarily have to call them. I know that I use ING, and ING allows me on the app to register that I'm going on a holiday and to simply put in those dates. So that can be a really useful strategy. So those are my tips to make sure that you always have access to money whilst you're overseas and having your holiday. Happy travels, everyone.